You know, following the speakers we had this morning, it's often difficult to get up here and try to tell a story, because that's what I'm here to do, is talk about the Carroll County story. And, you know, compared to what Dr. Huff and Joplin went through, when you think about strategic planning just for the sake of strategic planning, it's not quite the same magnitude. But you know, as I was sitting there thinking about what they had to go through, it made me realize even more the importance of strategic planning. Because he made the point to us that in the midst of that, the first thing that they had to do as a leadership team was sit down and do what? Set their direction. Now, what's strategic planning all about? Setting what? The direction. So I want to talk to you about strategic planning in Carroll County. We're a school system like many others, and we're about 14,000 students. We're the 24th largest school system in the state. We have in Carroll County a history of having some pretty good schools, or what I call islands of excellence. Any of you have school systems like that? But in the past, we've lacked a continuity, a consistency of direction, a continuity or consistency for how we approach improvement. And because of that, as we looked at our use of eBOARD, we recognized 3 years ago that we were not fully maximizing the tool that we had. We were using the policies module and the agendas module and doing a good job with that, but we're not using the strategic planning model at all. So we embarked upon a journey to do a better job of strategic planning and using eBOARD as a tool to help us get there. As Mark said, eBOARD is just a tool. But folks, it is an extremely powerful tool if you will use it the way it's designed. In Carroll County, as I said, we had some islands of excellence, but we did have that disease of spots that you talked about. Because strategic planning was looked at as an event, a one-time opportunity. You do it, you make it happen, you put it in that 3-ring binder, you put it on the notebook, on the shelf, and then you come back to it somewhere in the future. But that's not what we needed to do if we were going to become more consistent in our direction for improvement. So, we needed 4 things. As we looked at the eBOARD for our strategic planning efforts, we needed first and foremost to align and focus our work for district improvement. Alignment is a big word that you hear the eBOARD folks talk about. The second thing we need to do is provide a consistent format. For those of you who've done school improvement planning from the district level, you know how important it is to have a format that is consistent that you can use. The third thing that we needed to do was to be able to use this format to cascade vertically from the district all the way down to the lowest level of our district, how we would go about strategic planning. And the fourth thing we wanted to do is to make sure that we had a tool that would help us plan, manage, monitor, measure, and communicate performance. eBOARD was the tool that allowed us to do this. Because of the use of eBOARD now, today, not only do we have the district strategic improvement plan on eBOARD, we have all 23 of our schools' strategic improvement plans on eBOARD. So as a superintendent, I can sit there and can pull up each of my schools' school improvement plan and they're right on my fingertips. I can see what's happening, what they have planned, what the progress is, what's still to be done, and have those discussions with my principals as they come in relative to the work that's actually happening in the school district. That's a powerful tool. My principals can use the modules then if they're sitting down with their leadership teams or their school council and at real time have discussions about school improvement planning. And more importantly, as they're having those discussions, they can adjust as they move forward. As we know, data should inform us, and with that data, we should make adjustments. And by using eBOARD, we can do that because it allows for that real-time adjustment in the improvement planning process. So eBOARD has been extremely powerful for us. But as we started the process, we also found some other benefits, and that's what I'd like to share with you this morning. You see, other than the alignment and the consistency and the cascading of the work, here's some other benefits that some of you may not have recognized from the use of eBOARD for strategic planning. First, it solidifies a common set of directions. Now, whether you're a school system that has 5 schools in it with 1 high school, or like us, we've got 23 schools and 5 high schools, vertically, you need a common set of directions for that district to move forward so that you will not have islands of excellence. A school here, a school there that's doing well, but many of your schools not doing as well as you would like them to. A second benefit is it created a common vocabulary for improvement. Vocabulary is very important, especially when you've got as many schools as we have in Carroll County, so that when we're having a discussion in a principal's meeting or assistant principal's meeting or wherever it may be relative to improvement, it's not that one school calls it one thing here and another school calls it something else here, and then somebody else hears a different word there. It's hard to synchronize the thoughts. Now we have a common vocabulary built around what eBOARD allows us to do. The third benefit is the transparency benefit. It is extremely transparent. Internal and external stakeholders can put their finger on what's supposed to be happening in a school in a minute. In addition, besides just the plan itself, you have our balanced scorecards for each school in the district right there where people can pull it up and see our progress or lack of progress. Both are important for people to know. And the final benefit is it's a one-stop shop. Everything that has to do with school improvement in Carroll County is built around the use of eBOARD as the tool to deliver it. So for my principals, for my parents, for the district level folks, and more importantly for my Board of Education, they know where to go to get the information. They know where to go to do the work. And more importantly, they know where to go to get the information about what improvement is or is not happening in our district. So in conclusion, I strongly suggest if you're not maximizing the strategic planning capabilities of eBOARD, that you consider doing that. The eBOARD staff can help you do that, but it's a powerful platform, and when used, it's like having a nuclear carrier, aircraft carrier, and use it to its full benefit versus having a destroyer and not using it to its full benefit. So it's a very powerful tool, and we suggest you use it. Thank you.
Yes, we are stretched about 4 square miles across a beautiful area in City Schools of Decatur. It running through about 8 schools that houses approximately 4,000 students. 1 early childhood learning center that starts from birth through pre-K, 4 years old. We have 4 K-3 schools, 1 4th and 5th grade academy, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. And we are very excited to share our story with you this morning. We have utilized eBOARD to really capitalize on our community engagement. And that's one of the pieces of what we call connecting pieces, which is our theme in Decatur, is community engagement, not only external, but with our internal stakeholders as well. But to tell our story, I need to go back a little farther than that, prior to eBOARD. Before eBOARD came on board with us, when our superintendent, Dr. Phyllis Edwards, came to City Schools of Decatur about 10 years ago, just to give you an example of how we would conduct a board meeting, we would have different people coming in with their pieces of paper, their handouts, and they would pass everything out at these board meetings that were taking place. And one of the things we noticed is that we will also have so many different places that our community and parents and even staff members will have to go and access information in various locations. And so one of the first things that Dr. Edwards did in coming on board is to create what we often refer to today as our board packet. And this was a single document to pull all of that information into one document that will be presented at each board meeting. And in doing so, we restructured our agenda process during the board meetings to make them a little more structured so everything flowed accordingly. As eBOARD came on board with us in 2008, it made it, by having that board document, it made it's a little easier for us to transition toward eBOARD, which continued that structured process for us, but gave us the opportunity to place it in an electronic format to make it more accessible for all of our stakeholders across the district. And so that was very helpful when we moved forward. One of the big pieces when we have a board meeting is in the superintendent's part of her presentation. There is a superintendent's report, which has become a part of our agenda. And in that report, what eBOARD has allowed us to do by structuring that process is that now we found that most of our parents, our community members are really utilizing eBOARD because we get to see bits and pieces of the superintendent's report placed on blogs, placed on in news stories across the district. And so we know that people are really going there and utilizing it and reading the information that we have to share. Another important part for community engagement was our governance structure. We were one of the first charter school systems in the nation, and a part of that was trying to find a consistent and concise way to communicate at our school levels through our school leadership teams that we refer to as SLTs, and at the district level. And so we needed one place that we could get that communication out and make it accessible to all of the stakeholders. During those leadership team meetings, they used the same process that we established in our board meetings, where during that time, if a parent cannot make it out to the meeting at their school, they can readily go to eBOARD, access any documents, any presentations, any information that is shared at the SLT. A parent can have it at their fingertips and know exactly what's going on. So that was also very important for us. Also, the strategic plan module was mentioned earlier in the earlier presentation. We use that quite readily. And this is very key for our community stakeholders because they want to know how we're progressing on our 5-year strategic plan. They want to know about the goals and where we are and the reasons why we haven't made as much progress in a certain area. And so it's important for them to be able to go on and easily access that information and be familiar with what path the school system is taking. Last year, our superintendent launched 4 district-wide committees. Transportation, school bell committee, an ultimate menu committee, and these were all committees that community members were interested in. And one of the things that we did was have the committees utilize eBOARD to keep that communication with all of the members of our community going. And in doing so, individuals who may not have been a member of the committee, who were just parents interested in what are going to be the new bell times that are coming up, what's happening with our transportation across the district. They could go on eBOARD and pull that information and actually see minutes, see what was being discussed in every meeting, and all across those 4 committees. So we've tried to utilize eBOARD in a lot of different ways. One thing that's really near to my heart right now is the policy module that we utilize to get feedback on policies that we take to the board. In a month, we'll be taking some transportation policies, which I've been working very diligently on. And once those policies go to the board, we have them in eBOARD, and then when they are tabled for that 30-day period, eBOARD gives us a quick way that we can pull feedback in from our community stakeholders. So we can gather that feedback and present it back to our board members before they make their decisions on how they want to proceed with any policies that we have. It was mentioned earlier about aligning your strategic goals, your planning. I think this is the most important aspect of eBOARD that we really love. And that is when we look at a meeting, when we put up a meeting, we can always tie it back to the work that we have in our strategic plan goals. And it keeps us focused on what we are working toward. And we know that the work we're doing is always tied to strategic plan goals or school improvement plan goals. So I have to say that eBOARD really has been a great tool for our work with City Schools of Decatur. It has given us an opportunity to really reach out and give our community stakeholders one place that they can go and access information. We also use it in posting. When we're posting in other areas, different messages, we always put a link right back to eBOARD because we want to ensure that all of our families get consistent, concise, and accurate information when they are going and looking for anything that deals with our school system. Our next steps with eBOARD, and we've thought a lot about this, is we want to move towards more cross-training within our central office. Right now we have a limited number of individuals at the central office who are familiar with all of the modules, and so that's what we look at as being our next step with eBOARD, is really leveraging that knowledge base across our district level leaders so that in every aspect of our work, we're able to bring in those different modules to further enhance the communication that we have with internal and external stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin, and good morning. On behalf of the Forsyth County Board of Education and our 39,000 students, it's a privilege to come and share with you a little bit about our district, how we're using eBOARD, and how we intend to continue to use eBOARD to do something that our board has made a priority, and that is to work on continuing to build trust in our community. Let me tell you a little bit, first of all, about Forsyth County. If you've not ventured up on the northeastern side of the Atlanta area, you don't want to do it at the wrong time of the day. For those of us who travel down from 45 miles northeast of Atlanta through Atlanta in the rain and early morning traffic, we're tired by the time we get here. But we're thrilled. It's not just so we're excited to see all of our old friends. We're just excited to be here. But Forsyth County Schools, I'm now complete in the 6th year of being in Forsyth County Schools after having been superintendent for 11 years in another school district in Georgia. When I got to Forsyth County 6 years ago, this is a true story, or at least almost true. We had 30,800 students, and we had a budget of $270 million. 6 years later, we have 39,000 students, and Mark, we still have a budget of $270 million. Now, you can do the math, and you can apply it to your own district, but basically, we're doing what we're doing with basically almost a 25% less cost than we did 6 years ago. Don't know that we think that's all necessarily a good thing, but it is a way that we're operating. During the whole course of time, there's not been, I'll say this as a superintendent, and I'm so glad we have 2 board members here, but not the first one of them has said, Buster, it's okay, even though you have 25% less resources, that you relax our goal toward having higher student achievement. Has anyone told you that in your district? No, not at all. In our community, despite the fact that we're experiencing these same types of challenges, not the first person has said you've got to find a way that you can relax student achievement. That's not how we're wired. That is not how we operate, and that is not what our goals and what our intentions are for us to be. So it means that we have to take whatever available resources that we have and begin to leverage them. In Forsyth County, that means in addition to first of all, our great people and our great facilities, there's going to be our investment that has been made for a long period of time in the area of technology. I very clearly remember about 3.5 years ago, Bailey Mitchell, our Chief Technology Officer, and I were having a conversation as we realized we were no longer going to be able to do school the way that we used to do school. We had experienced something that none of us had ever experienced in our careers. We were having furlough days. We were having austerity cuts. And we were seeing a cost increase, and so we began to do a lot of things that we didn't think were necessarily the right things to do educationally, but those were the resources and those were the challenges that we had. So as Bailey and I began to have the conversation about how do we use technology in our district to help us fill the gap to continue high student achievement, we recognized that for us, a tool that we had was technology. So we answered our question this way. For us in the Forsyth County Schools, what we want to do as we look internationally and not just nationally and not just in Georgia, and looking at countries that educate their children 240, 250 days a year, and we were going from 180 to something less than 180. We said, one of the things as we leverage technology, we want to figure out how to do this. We want to expand the school day. We want to expand the school year. We want to expand access to content. And we want to do it efficiently by leveraging technology. Now, we've done that on the instructional side with a number of things such as our Bring Your Own Technology initiative, our virtual schools, some of our blended schools, and those types of things that we're trying to do to further engage students. But I think it's been very, very important that our board has modeled those expectations by being a board of education that has fully embraced eBOARD as a solution to making things work more efficiently in the Forsyth County schools. Now, I will tell you, this is the second district that I've had an opportunity to use eBOARD in. My first district was a district of about 2,500 students. So I say this a little bit from the standpoint, it doesn't, kind of like my sense of authority. Someone says, where does a person get their authority to speak on the topic from? And a lot of us go back to our religious influences in life. And it's very common for my Methodist friends to say, well, the Bible says, and then they quote what it is they want to say. And then our Presbyterian friends oftentimes say, well, God says this. Well, those of us who are Baptists say, well, it seems to me. So I'm going to tell you, real quick like, as it seems to me, whether you're a small district in Georgia or whether you're a district that's the 9th largest district like Forsyth County schools or larger, there are options and there are opportunities for leveraging technology through eBOARD. Now, I'll say this, I believe that all of the modules in eBOARD are very effective modules. You may find in your adoption that you use with greater fidelity certain aspects of it than you do others. That has been our experience, but our experience has also been we use all of the modules. And then each year as we go along, we find how we can better implement. But very important to our Board of Education, and the very first belief they have about providing governance leadership in a district is this statement, and that is trust among all stakeholders is vital. Trust among all stakeholders is vital. So that is one of the major reasons why our board and our district has used the meetings module as perhaps one of the premier modules that we use. We now use in Forsyth County our meeting module for not just board meetings, which we think is really phenomenal because it provides a great platform for giving our community, a very engaged community, access to not only the information that we're dealing with on this month's board meeting, but historically all of the information that they can go back and track. And I believe that's one of the greatest forms of transparency that we can provide for them. But very quickly, in addition to our board meetings, we use it for all of our administrator meetings, all of our cabinet meetings, our school council meetings. And I'll talk to you about implementation of these in just a minute. Our student advisory meetings. This morning at 7:30, I had my teacher advisory meeting. All of our teachers who were getting ready to come to the meeting, they didn't necessarily have to bring their agenda with them, even though we did give them one. They had access to that agenda and all the presentations that we're going to be giving at 7:30 this morning to them available. When they go back to their schools and share what they've experienced and what we've talked about, all of that information will be there for not only those teachers who were at teacher advisory, but all 2,500 plus teachers in our school district. This afternoon, when we go back, we will have a student advisory meeting at 5 o'clock this afternoon. All of our students who will be participating in student advisory will also be able to get all of their agenda and all of the support material there. So we've taken our meetings modules and said, okay, if it's good for our board, it's also going to be good for our school councils, it's going to be good for our teachers, it's going to be good for our students, and it's going to be good for our administrators. So for us, using eBOARD as a way of going paperless, and as one of my colleagues shared just a minute ago, I can remember the days when and every board member is this way. You don't like for your fellow board members to get information before you do you? And not always being able to rely on the mail. I can remember early days of being a superintendent, literally skip riding all over Bleckley County to make sure before the 6 o'clock board meeting that night, all of my board members got that information on the same day and as close to the same time as possible. Today, where Dr. Valerie Hall administers our eBOARD program and flicks the switch and makes things available to those board members instantaneously. They'll have all of that information, and usually it's almost 100% correct. But if not, it's just very easy to go in there and make those corrections that need to be made. So we've made this a way of work that's important for our district. I can tell you a little bit about how we plan our meetings. I'll share maybe in our later session this afternoon about how we spend that time and how we do invest time once a month, particularly with our board chair who comes in. And when Tom Cleveland was our board chair, he'd come in at 7:30 in the morning. And this is talk about being flexible. Now that we have a board member who's not up at 7:30 in the morning, they come in at 11. And it doesn't matter to me, because whatever our board chair says, that's what time we're going to have our meeting. That's what we do, right? So we just look forward to being flexible with those kinds of implementations. As I've indicated, it's not just our meetings module that we've employed. We've used it for strategic planning. We'll continue to do that. I would submit to you that communications, and while there is a communications module, the concept of eBOARD in itself is a communications tool. And I believe that is the most powerful aspect of eBOARD, in that we can use this tool as a way of communicating to all of our constituencies the importance of being connected. The last thing that our board has used and we continue to use is the evaluation model, which provides flexible capabilities for doing board evaluations and superintendent evaluations. Once again, we've used these in some years more than we have others, but our board can go in today and look and see just last year when they did their board self-evaluation. That information is still available for their use, to hopefully be used as a way of being able to benchmark and continuing to improve. As I close my comments, I want to just, Scott did a great job of sharing a few points to how it's worked in their district. I want to share 3 things that I think are important for making eBOARD work in your district, and these are from experiences that at least it comes from the "it seems to me" category. First of all, you got to make a commitment. You make that commitment by basically saying that this is going to be a program that we're going to use because, and whatever your reasons may be, if it's greater accountability, if it's greater transparency, if it's greater engagement, or greater communication, whatever their commitment is. Someone says that we can tell what's important to each of us by 2 things. One, looking at our checkbook, and 2, by looking at our calendar. In other words, where we spend our money and where we spend our time. If you want to invest your money and your time enhancing accountability, enhancing transparency, I believe that communicates a powerful message to your community. Second thing that we've found is absolutely essential in making eBOARD work effectively in your district is find the best person that you know of in your district who works perhaps in the central office and allow them to manage your eBOARD system. Now, it is important to do some cross-training, but Valerie Hall administers ours. It's probably not going to be your superintendent, right, Scott? It's probably going to be somebody else who's a lot more detail-oriented, a lot more looking at it, and that's how it's worked in our district. Consequently, not only can we use that person to be involved in implementing eBOARD with our board, but now as we go out to our 36 school councils and they learn how to utilize eBOARD, we can provide a consistent training platform for each of those school councils in implementing eBOARD. And then I think the third thing is you got to model it. Once you make that commitment, once you provide the training, then you have to model it. Someone has said the #1 sport in the world is not baseball, it's ball swatching. In our school districts, folks watch the school board and folks watch the superintendent. If you will model your use of eBOARD, I believe that's probably the best thing that you can do for getting people to buy into using eBOARD in your school district. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you this morning. Look forward to being with you later in the day as well. Thank you.
Good morning. I find myself in a little bit of a precarious situation because I am also supposed to speak this afternoon, and I'm afraid of giving away everything that I'm going to tell you this afternoon. So I'm going to take a little different route and tell you that, first of all, eBOARD is a little bit about the way that we do business in Barrow County. That's the way we have tried to embrace eBOARD. It is about the way that we do our business, and it's about the way that we communicate with our stakeholders. It's also about our team. I have with me today 7 ladies that any one of them could jump in at any moment and take care of eBOARD. And we have a host of people in our system that are just that proficient with it. Again, it is about the way that we conduct business in our school system. But I also want to talk about those people. But I want to talk about the eBOARD team as well. I want to give you some examples of when we talk about the people and we talk about the support that's there. I want to talk about how it's made a difference in our school system. When I joined Barrow County School System in April of 2010, and as I shared with some of our Missouri friends before we started the conference, there should be something said about the fact when a superintendent starts on April Fool's Day. But when I started in Barrow County, we were using the meetings module and we were using the policies module. We have greatly enhanced our use now of the meetings module, but I remember when Barrow County originally won the grant from Georgia Power in order to implement the strategic plan module. And as we implemented that, we had a tremendous support person by the name of Wanda that ventured to Barrow County. And as we sat there and we talked about implementing the strategic planning module in our work at the school system, I remember leaning over to our assistant superintendent for teaching and learning, and I said, she made the mistake of telling us about the awards program, and I said, we're going to be there. And so I share that with you because in just a few moments I'm going to tell you how we have been able to get there by using each one of you as examples. And then I'm also going to tell you a story of 2 stories. We used the module for district accreditation. And with the use of that district accreditation module, the night before, we had put all of our information on the district accreditation module on iPads that we were giving to our visiting team members. But something wasn't quite working just right. And frantically, behind the scenes, we had people that were calling the eBOARD team, and they worked with us for many hours that night to make sure that the very next morning when our team arrived and we were presenting all of our information, everything worked just fine. It wasn't just owning it for us in Barrow County. The eBOARD team took ownership of that as well. I'll tell you about another opportunity we had, and that was in my personal superintendent evaluation. Again, a situation that things behind the scenes weren't working exactly the way we wanted them to work, and I frantically called again Lanita, and she worked with me. And by the time that everything was supposed to work at 7 o'clock, everything worked just fine. And then I'll tell you the story of last year being here at this user conference. And the night before, we had just taken to our board a social media policy. And very similar to what CJ mentioned, is that when the local people put out news briefs, it doesn't take long for others to find that out. And so the local media here, all local media channels, were calling me frantically. Cindy Beggs, my assistant, was calling me frantically. Everybody wants to interview you, and they don't care where you are, they're coming there. And they didn't care that I was here and that I was supposed to be speaking. They met me outside. And in order to be able to speak on that policy, I was so grateful that I could very easily come in, pull up eBOARD, pull up our meeting from the night before, pull up the policy, refresh my memory of exactly what I needed to be able to speak on, and go outside and in front of this building, give an interview that was going to be aired on the nightly news. Now that tells you what eBOARD does for us when that's the way we do business in Barrow County. And I say that to say that I could look at each and every one of the superintendents that have presented today and tell you that whether it is strategically aligned plans from the district cascaded down to our schools, or whether, like Buster said, from an efficiency standpoint, when I joined Barrow County, we had a budget of $102 million. We had just about 11,500 students. Today, we have over 13,000 students, and we have an $88 million budget. So that tells you what we're doing budget-wise. So when it talks about efficiency, it is the way to be efficient. And like my fellow Dr. Kennedy, as a charter system, communication is critical. The way that we run governance in our school system, being a charter system, is critical. And having the opportunity to be transparent and share that information is absolutely vital to the way that we conduct our business. And so I look forward to sharing a few more examples with you this afternoon. But I close by saying that eBOARD is not just a tool. It is a tool, but it's not just a tool. It's a team of people that are working together to help us be successful. Thank you.